is basically an aggro Sliver deck I put together, and I'm really happy about it. I'm really excited, and I like playing it. It's for casual formats because most of this stuff isn't legal right now. Standard, well, some of it is, but some of it isn't because they're old cards. But you know what? When you're going with Slivers, you want to pick the best of the best, especially when you're going with an aggro build, because all the good cheap stuff is it's back there. So yeah, I'm really excited to play this deck. For my land base, I have 4 copies of Sliver Hive. This is in the new M15 set. Basically, it's you get to tap to add a colorless mana, or you can also tap to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, and you can only spend that mana to cast a Sliver spell. Since I only have Slivers and lands in this deck, it doesn't, yeah, you're automatically going to be able to use that for whatever color mana you want and play the Sliver you need to play. It also has the ability where if you pay 5, tap it, you get to put a 1/1 colorless Sliver token onto the battlefield. But you can only do that if you already have a Sliver out. So it has a ton of upside, because even if you run out of things to cast, you can start tapping it and creating 1/1 Sliver creatures. It's glorious. It's beautiful and works perfectly in a Sliver deck. I also have 4 copies of Sacred Foundries. Since I basically could handle and mess with any land I want, I threw in a whole bunch of copies of the Shockland, because this deck has to be aggressive in order to work well, and these are like the best aggressive lands there are, because if you need to have them out, you can, pay the 2 life and you have them out there right that turn, or if you don't need them, you can, put them in tapped and you're okay. So I've got 4 copies of Sacred Foundries. These tap for white or red. I also include 4 copies of Stomping Ground. Same deal, pay 2 mana, you can put it in untapped, otherwise it comes into the battlefield tap, and it taps for red and green mana. So 4 copies of both of those. I also include the Temple Garden, the green-white Shockland. To pay 2 life, you can put it in play untapped. So that's all those Shocklands, and my final land is 4 copies of Temple of Abandon. This deck is very red and green heavy, and the ability to scry helps a lot with this, because if you have way too much land, you can scry and do what you need to. And I only have 4 copies of that one because, like I said, this deck has to be aggressive, and I don't want to be drawing temples and having to put them in play tapped and delaying when I get to play out my creatures. So there's only those temples in there. The rest of them are Shocklands because they're way quicker, which makes it a lot more fun. Alright, so the first Sliver I have is Striking Sliver. 1 mana for a 1/1, and it gives all Sliver creatures you control first strike. I like first strike. It works well, especially with some of the other cards in there. And I only have 3 copies of these because I've got another Sliver that gives everything double strike, so I didn't want too much overlap on that one. So 3 copies of that. I also include 4 copies of Galerider Sliver. It's 1 blue mana for a 1/1, but it gives all Slivers you control flying. It's so good. And you can basically, overrun your opponent with these flying creatures that just kill things, because they're going to be big, because you're going to have a ton of other Slivers out. And this guy's very easy to cast. I mean, you have Galerider Sliver, and you have a couple other things that help you in casting. You have Sliver Hive in order to cast this, and another card I have in here to help cast and get that mana when you need it. Alright, so those are my 1-drops. My 2-drops consist of Heart Sliver, 1 colorless, a red for a 1/1, but it gives all Sliver creatures you have haste. Since you can get this guy out early, you can start really attacking your opponent and overrunning them really quickly. Seriously, this deck it's evil, it's awful, it's fun to play, but not fun to play against. That, yes. So 4 full copies of that. I also include 4 copies of Manaweft Sliver. Now this is 1 colorless and a green for a 1/1, but this is what helps that mana problem that you have when you have a bunch of different colors of mana you're trying to cast. It gives all Sliver creatures you control tap to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Yeah, you can get all the off-color stuff you have in here. You can get Sliver Hivelord out here really, really fast because you can now tap your creatures to put the colors you need out. It's so good. And it helps with your mana base because now you don't have to worry about those 1 or 2 colors you have that you're splashing in here, and you can have a pretty consistent mana base. I really love this card. 4 full copies of it because it needs it. I also include 4 copies of Predatory Sliver. 1 mana for 2 mana, 1 colorless and a green for a 1/1, and it gives Sliver creatures you control +1/+1. So it's really a 2/2. Yay! A 2/2, and it gives all your other creatures 2/2 or +1/+1. It's I really like this card, and if you can get out a lot of him, it just keeps adding and adding and adding and adding, and you have giant slivers and you attack and you kill your opponent. It's so fun. Alright, I also include 4 copies of Two-Headed Sliver. It's 1 colorless and a red for a 1/1, and it gives all slivers. This creature can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. So yeah, not only can your creatures are huge from all your other stuff, they can't even be blocked except for by 2 or more stuff. And if you give them all flying, your opponent probably only has like 1 or 2 flying creatures, and now they can't block anything, and that's not even all the slivers they have. There's still more in this deck. More stuff you can give your slivers. Alright, I also have 4 copies of Venom Sliver. It's from the M15 set, 1 colorless and a green for a 1/1, and I think this one has to be my favorite because I just love Death Touch. You can put cheap creatures out like typhoid rats and things like that and kill these huge giant creatures that your opponent has played like 5 mana for a creature for 1 mana. It's so awesome! And this guy gives all of your slivers Death Touch, so basically no matter what you do, you're gonna kill your opponent's creature no matter how big it is. So much fun! Alright, I also include 4 copies of Sentinel Sliver. It's 1 colorless and a white for a 2/2. And what could be better than just attacking with your giant big things than, attacking and blocking, because your creatures don't tap when you attack them. This guy gives all slivers Vigilance. I like Vigilance because I like attacking, but I don't like getting hit on the way back, and Vigilance just basically prevents that, especially if you have it out in combination with, Venom Sliver, so everything has Death Touch. Your opponent's not going to want to block your stuff, but then they can't even attack into your stuff because you have Death Touch, and it's Vigilance. It's so good. It's so much, so good. Alright, I also have 3 copies of Bonescythe Sliver. Now this guy's one of the more expensive ones in this deck. Like, besides the 5 mana creatures I have in here, this is the most expensive. It goes 1, and then a whole bunch of 2s, and then this guy for 4. So he's 3 colorless and a white. He's only a 2/2, but let me tell you, just let me tell you. He gives all Sliver creatures you control double strike. Yay! Double strike with Death Touch and all this. You get to do so much damage and kill so many things with it. It's so good. It's so good. So only 3 copies of those because we already have, the Striking Sliver, which gives everything first strike. So it was a little redundant to have both of them at the same time. So there's only 6 of those total in the deck. And hopefully you can get to this guy because this guy's way better than just first strike. It's awesome. Alright, so those are all the single color slivers. We also have some multicolor slivers. I have 3 copies of Sliver Legion. It costs 5, 1 white, 1 blue, 1 black, 1 red, 1 green, for a 7/7 giant Sliver legendary creature. So you can only have 1 of them out on the field at a time, but really that's all you need. Because this guy gives all Sliver creatures +1/+1 for each other Sliver in play. So if you have 3 Slivers, everything gets +3/+3, so he'll be a tendon. If you just have 2 other slivers, you only need, oh, it's so good. Seriously, you play this guy down, and if you have an army, your opponent's basically just has to, like, I'm gonna scoop. Because otherwise they're basically dead. Seriously, they're dead with this guy. Dead. 7/7 for 5 is good. I like him. But there's only 3 copies because he's legendary, so you can't have more than 1 out, which is really sad, but problems. But it's okay. It's okay, because if you could get 1 out, it's ridiculously good. Alright, our final 3 copies in this deck belong to Sliver Hivelord. Again, 5 mana, white, blue, black, red, and green for a 5/5, and then it gives everything else indestructible. All your slivers now can't be destroyed. Which means, oh, if they were trying to get rid of that Legion, or Sliver Legion, yeah, they can't because he has indestructibility. Oh no, it's a great thing to have because, oh, all those Death Touch all your little guys are not gonna die, especially if they have Death Touch and things like this. This deck is just mean, it's evil, it's so much fun to play with. Seriously. Ugh. Slivers are really broken. They really are, because this shouldn't be allowed to give your creatures everything and just have them not be able to be taken care of. It's beautiful and wonderful, and yeah. I really like this version of this deck because it's aggro. I like aggro, and then being able to give your stuff indestructibility. Oh. But let me know what you think of this deck in the comments below. Like this video and subscribe for more.